Hi, everyone, and welcome to the TriClip TR and the TVT Registry webinar. My name is Joan Michaels. I'm a nurse at the American College of Cardiology, and I, along with Carol Crone at STS, manage and direct the STS ACC TVT Registry. I'd like to spend the next few minutes reviewing some of the data collection that we will be asking for and tracking for compliance in the TriClip module. And any of your questions that you would like to add into the chat, we'll be answering those by a moderator after the meeting. This is the disclosure slide. I'd like to start out by reminding everyone that the TVT registry is real world evidence. We've been very successful at collecting this data with previous modules and previous valve studies, and we're very excited to be now collecting this data through real world data for the TriClip procedure. This is not a clinical trial. The registry is real world experience. I always like to show a map of the depth and breadth of TVT sites throughout the United States. We also have some international sites, but currently we're between 846 and 847 sites. And as you well know, the registry's been up and running for greater than 10 years now. So what's exciting about the registry is the TriClip G4 system has FDA approval since April 2024. And the specifics of the approval was indicated for improving quality of life and functional status in patients with symptomatic severe tricuspid regurgitation despite optimal medical therapy, who are at intermediate or greater risk for surgery, in whom transcatheter edge-to-edge valve repair is clinically appropriate, and is expected to reduce tricuspid regurgitation severity to moderate or less, as determined by your multidisciplinary heart team. That's the approval. So once the FDA approved TriClip, then they ask for and require a post-approval study. And this is where the registry comes in. So requirements for the post-approval study are using a registry based on approving the surveillance, TriClip approval, post-approval study. So it's the TriClip TR post-approval study is the official name. What we will be collecting are all consecutive patients within the first 2 years following device approval, April of 2024, or the total of 5,000 consecutive patients treated and entered into the TVT registry, whichever comes greater. So in addition to the surveillance of overall data elements, the compliance requirements are something we're really trying to focus on. Post-approval requirements include completion of the TVT registry, but more specifically, at least 75% data completeness for KCCQ. Now, what does that mean? KCCQ, as you may be familiar with, is required at baseline, 30 days, and 1 year. Very critically important for the 1 year KCCQ, but we can't compare that unless we have the baseline. So what FDA is really narrowly focusing, encouraging us to increase compliance with is the 1 year KCCQ. In addition, tricuspid regurgitation at the 1 year follow-up. So these are the two key points that you might hear me add in throughout my presentation. And this is something that FDA is asking for from the very beginning of approval. So how do we do that? We know the why we need it. It's showing an improvement in patient outcomes. So here's the how. To use the TVT registry, as you're familiar with, is a 12-page document. However, if you're just doing the TriClip procedure separately and distinct from any other valve procedure, you don't have to collect all 12 pages. You would go right for that module after you provide the definition or the data collection for your demographics and pre-procedural information, specifically picking the pathway. Then you would follow with the TriClip data requirements. Something that I want to focus on, and we will be enhancing this when we do our version upgrade next year, is to really educate, reinforce, stress the importance of, again, why are you doing this? What's the etiology? So very much like in mitral, we have etiology definitions. In tricuspid, we have etiology definitions as well. And I clipped this from the dictionary. If you have trouble finding it, happy to answer where you could find it and send you the latest copy of the dictionary so you'll have that. But we're showing this to familiarize yourself with tricuspid etiology being defined as both primary and secondary, or pacemaker induced if that's the reason why you're doing the procedure. And you could read the definitions. Just an example of the same, but a little bit different. This is the mitral valve etiology. And in addition to showing primary and secondary, as you can see, we're saying primary is degenerative, which you know, and secondary is known as functional. When we do our new upgrade, we will be using the same nomenclature for tricuspid as we are for mitral, but I wanted to point that out so you're familiar with it. You ask your coders, did you look in the chart to see why we're doing this? And maybe enhancing the familiarity and the awareness with your heart team to please document that in using this terminology so it's easier to find when coding. Again, primary etiology, degenerative, secondary, functional. With these, we'll become very, very familiar with this as we see more procedures. Another enhancement that we're making because we want to forego or prevent any confusion, as sites are coding what device they're using, you're familiar with clicking the device search tool on the data collection tool, and a list of devices will pop up. Very easy to perhaps misclip on a clip if you're familiar with mitral and you're doing a TriClip procedure. So what we're doing, if you search for the device and your muscle memory just picks up on clip, we're putting a pop-up message that you will now say, pause, did you really mean to select that device? Remember, you're doing a TriClip procedure. So it's another stop, pause, make sure you're coding correctly, because we want to make absolutely sure the correct device was used in the procedure that you're doing. We also have an announcement on our website page to remind people we're doing this. It certainly will be done in color as soon as we can, but we wanted to get the pop-up out quickly. Another important tracking point of information that we want to make sure people are comfortable and clear and complete in compliance is if the patient is readmitted, the why. Are they readmitted for valve issues, non-valve issues, heart failure issues? What's the readmission about? So to kind of preempt this confusion or vagueness of looking at the chart, you probably would be best if in your heart team meetings or kind of proactively now tell your heart team, when one of your patients gets readmitted, we need to know the why. Why? If it's readmission for heart failure or readmission for valve, why are they being readmitted? And I think that will be very easy to do, but again, raising the awareness is where you build your best practice. And I just pointed out that there because we have a litany of reasons for readmission and post events. So something that we have been stressing is that this is very different than a procedure. This is a program. It's a program, not a procedure. The soon as your patient, family, heart team embrace the concept as viewing this as a program, that's the recipe for success. Everyone should know what the goal is. When you meet that patient and their family, remember that our patients having TriClip are most often an older cohort of patient. So they're not coming to the appointment alone. They're coming with family. So the family, the patient need to be addressed from the very beginning as welcome. This is a program, and this will require your responsibility, your accountability, and your acceptability to 30-day, and most importantly, the 1-year follow-up. If patients and family are aware of the process the chances of them complying with the process goes up. We've done a survey and that was very clear. If there's a process in place, patients are more compliant. Follow-up appointments should be made way prior to the patient walking out the door. Again, establishing this as a program which includes 1-year follow-up. And they should also know who to contact and when to contact them if in need. You could do this in a variety of ways, letting them know this is the valve coordinator, this is the valve coordinator office, this is the hotline. So they should walk out the door with knowing if anything changes, who can they contact? And again, if they have to reschedule their follow-up appointment, you need to know that well in advance so you're within the guidelines of the follow-up timeframe that we have. I always like to ask best practice sites, what's your success? What's your recipe for success? Why are you 3 stars in public reporting? Why are you have such good outcomes? And we're not there with TriClip because we're learning together what we will learn from the data we collect. But we do know what a successful aortic program looks like and what the recipe for success in that arena is. And as you can see, communication and teamwork. One hospital told me that everyone, including the janitor, knows what the team is all about and why we're here to do what we're here. So everyone needs to know and have a piece of the success and a piece of the process to make sure everything flows in an orderly fashion. So communication and teamwork. I have another valve coordinator who walks into her hard team meetings with a hard copy of the dictionary and adjudicates with the group every case before it's submitted to make sure that everything was collected correctly and completely. Back to the patient and family need to know the process. They're your biggest allies, and that family member will be definitely a supporter to say, Mom or Dad, you have to answer that email, you have to pick up that phone. Remember, that's that nurse that introduced herself to us at the beginning. Many sites send letters initially. That's the starting point for their follow-up process, and they'll send a letter out 75 days prior to the deadline. Because again, older patients have last-minute changes, illnesses, inability to get where they need to be. So you want to have enough time to reschedule if it needs to happen. And we do have a time frame between the 30-day and the 1-year follow-up. You have 60 days on both ends of that 365-day follow-up 1-year deadline. So you have plenty of time to schedule that or reschedule that if you have to. And then some sites that if they don't have a response from the letter that was sent, that's when the trigger is to call the patient. So depending on what type of setup you want to have done, you could either send the email, or a letter where they could complete the 1-year KCCQ via mail and send it back, or you can call them and do the KCCQ over the phone. And then also remind them, you should be scheduled for your 1-year echo follow-up to get that TR. When will that be? And remind them and encourage them. And that is just a little snippet of some of the ideas that have been successful for programs. Many, many years ago when we were starting the registry, and this was so new to be including follow-up, one valve coordinator started her journey and successful journey by meeting her patients at the front door when they came in with their family and always said, I will be taking care of you for the rest of your life. My name is Lisa. And that increased their compliance for follow-up to perfection because you immediately connected that touch point with the patient. And more importantly, again, as I said, with the family member, I will be taking care of your mom or dad for the rest of their life. That ups the game for the follow-up completion. Some quick hints that might help. I'd like to end by saying thank you for your time. I know everyone is busy, but I want to leave you with my name, again, Joan Michaels, and this is my email and my phone number because as we enter this new journey together, I am passionate that we will be successful if we work together, and don't hesitate to call or contact me with any questions that you or your heart team might have. I'm happy to help. Remember, it's a program and we're in this together. Thank you for your time.